Footy and Frothies, Daggy Barney are back with you to talk all things National Rugby League from round 23. David, hello.
Hi, mate. How are you?
I'm all right. Getting there.
Good.
Not a bad weekend.
No, it wasn't. Weather wasn't great.
No, but it did never piss down. It always felt like it was about
just
to.
constantly soggy and wet. But
Nothing like small talk to get listeners excited. But, yeah, what happened? Anything exciting at the weekend?
Great, mate. I'm happy to be alive, to be honest. A bit of a brush with death on Friday, so it's fantastic. On the back roads out at Wetherill Parkway, a pretty big truck decided to take up my lane at the last minute, and I've had to swerve to get around it and bounced off a guardrail and... obviously wasn't concentrating, so didn't get any number plates or anything. Well, there was no collision with the truck anyway, so there's nothing I can do. I'm going to have to pay the excess to get the crease taken out of the side of my car. But just happy I didn't end up underneath a pretty big rigid truck there on Friday morning at 5 a.m. So it's a good start to my day. Had some panic attacks and a bit of anxiety for the rest of the day, but got through it. Still here, happy to be alive, mate.
That's
got
amazing.
home and gave the daughter a hug, and so.
Got through it. Good to see you doing well.
No, it's makes you appreciate the little things, I guess.
Of course, especially little things. She's a cute little thing. And went and saw Diesel Saturday night. Mariah surprised me with tickets there. So that was pretty good. Yeah, he can play guitar. Don't know if people are aware of that, but he's
sing
not
a little
bad.
bit.
It wasn't bad, so it was a nice surprise.
That's good.
Sister-in-law watched the kids, so that was good. But the rest of the weekend was some pretty enjoyable games of footy. Actually, it was. Some rugby league chaos, as I like. There was
especially the back end.
Some goddamn officiating. There was
some pretty clinical performances at the start of the weekend. Yeah.
I think we learned a little bit.
Yeah.
I think we might have
there's
question marks.
A little bit more confusion as well towards the bottom of the ladder. Or the bottom of the eight.
A couple of those ones that got out, Joe, you almost would have rather got beat just so you could be more comfortable about how it all looks. But, maybe it all means nothing. Unless you've just been an accident on Wetherill Park. But, that's what happened over the weekend. We're going to touch on each and every one of those games. I guess the only real news is that State of Origin is confirmed for Perth in 2025 and 2028. Probably means New South Wales are giving up those home games. It's generally how it works. Queensland don't give up too many.
They don't seem to like to give up a game, do they?
But I think there's also a tender in somewhere for New Zealand to get a game. I believe maybe 27 I saw.
That'd be a pretty good atmosphere, I would imagine.
Well, you think that'd sell out, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Make a weekend of it and have
it's been rocking over there this year.
Have an international and, do
sold
something
out a
proper.
few games. We saw Perth played pretty well over the weekend with the two games that were played out there. It's always generally a pretty hard and flat track. There was one spot in the field that seemed to get pretty slippery. There was a few blokes sliding around just under the goalpost at one end of the field, but it was a good spectacle to see the two games out of Perth.
It's an impressive stadium. Not that I've been. It looks impressive. Looks pretty good. Looks somewhere you'd want to go and watch a test match or perhaps two games of rugby league.
Absolutely.
Signing news. We may as well get the little stuff out of the way first. Jake Clifford is back at the Cowboys. Ollie will be happy.
Yeah, I saw that.
Only here he's to come in and perhaps support Townsend or take over from Townsend.
I'd say it would be to take over eventually.
But he's got a year to prove himself there. Jack Cogger and Jed Cartwright are officially off to Newcastle.
Oh, right.
I guess they're decent enough backup players there. Jack Cogger's capable of being a first grade half somewhere along the way, surely.
And Jed Cartwright's shown flashes of probably being able to fill a constant spot in the 17 somewhere, but
can cover his back row and a centre, but he's
doesn't seem to be given a full proper crack at it, to be honest. But
yeah, some of those bits and pieces players are on the way out at South, so it'd be interesting to see what's left there.
They probably have to make a bit of room to fit Jackie Boy in there.
It's true as well. And they've got some good, they're keeping some good ones. Talis Duncan's got something about him for
Doesn't
sure.
he? He's very fleet of foot. Got some pace and seems to have a bit of decent strength too. You can brush a bloke off here and there. So.
Exactly. We'll get to him later on. Injury news. We've got Chance, Dane Laurie and Molo all looking like missing the week with HIA. Charlie Staines probably doing the same with hamstring. Seb Chris at the moment is looking like about a month with the hamstring. And that's probably a big out for them because he's dragged them out of some situations there. They'll even, actually, I think Vossi was it Vossi calling the game? Was mentioning that perhaps he might end up 5'8" there next year, the way they're going. So obviously Ricky likes him. They're just got to work out what he is. But
yeah, I'd like to see a bit more of his passing game. Didn't really come to the fore too much at fullback. It was more of a running game, but yeah.
Yeah, Jerome Hughes could miss a bit longer than just this week.
Yeah, they come out after the game and said it's an ankle, not an illness.
Yeah,
so.
so it could be another week or two. They'll try and, I suppose, nurse him into finals time.
So.
And Matt Lodge has a CL of some description. It's either an A or an M, but
yeah.
I don't think he's
And
going to play
George
much
went
more
down
footy.
with one too.
And George did too.
MCL.
So they're probably missing
George Jennings.
a fair bit of time. The fun one, I guess, is judiciary. I don't know how we want to talk about the high shots over the weekend, but just first of all, Jack White was fined for contrary conduct. Apparently accused a referee of trying to get the Tigers back in the game. Quite funny. Mo, direct and forceful contact to the head, sent off a week. Brown, direct and forceful contact to the head, a week, sent off. Sam Burgess, direct and forceful contact to the head, allegedly.
Tom,
sorry. 3 weeks, it was his third charge. Jerome Luai, direct and forceful contact to the head, third charge of the season. He got to laugh about it with the touch judge official and nothing. $3,000 fine.
How you can get sent off and get a week, I have no idea.
Well, I wouldn't have thought so.
You'd think that'd be minimum 2 to 3 weeks. The Mo one probably was, while it was direct and forceful, it probably wasn't as bad as the Nathan Brown one, where he didn't really leave his feet. He just sort of bunkered down, and obviously Chance got a bit low.
I thought Brown
He
was
hit him
the worst
square
of
in
the
the
three.
face, obviously.
But Mo was, and watching it live, was it at dinner watching it live, and it didn't look that bad. But I watched the replay today; it was probably a bit worse than I first saw.
Yeah, it was just shoulder
both
square in
him
the face.
and
But they probably should have got 10 minutes more so.
Both
than
him and
the
Burge, there was no intent in either of that. They were just good tackles that got a bit high. Yeah, they came out of the line. So I thought 10 minutes would have been sufficient for all four, to be honest.
Yep. I'm surprised Luai didn't go.
Luai left his feet.
Luai didn't even. Luai's was more of a shoulder charge than anyone's. He actually, you see him turn his top half of his body to put the shoulder into the face. If
left his feet.
If it was a normal person's head, it probably would have been a different result.
What
it was one of the biggest
been the
heads in
result
the game.
if the two participants in that tackle were flipped?
Was switched around, Luai would probably still be unconscious.
And Nelson would have been probably sent off.
Yes, absolutely.
So
and probably suspended for a month.
That left a bit of a...
But,
I would have thought 10 minutes would have sufficed there, but...
I think they all should have got 10 minutes and probably 2 weeks, realistically. His third charge, understandable for Tom to get an extra week for his third charge, and baffled at how Luai for a third charge of the season doesn't get anything. But what can you say?
Maybe we should just leave it on that comment before Penrith fans start boiling.
Comment below, please.
8 minutes into this show. But yeah, comment below. Also, Chris, after the show, the previous show last week, commented on how we didn't mention any of the high shots from South last week, and they all went unpunished against the Tigers. So you're a shit bloke, but
There's just so many of them that go past. We did have a quick recap of that one. There was one that I didn't think there was anything involved in it, to be honest. It was just a really good hit. The other two, yeah, probably should have been penalties. But how many do you see week in, week out that, bounce off a shoulder and land on a chin, and then one gets penalised, one doesn't, one gets 10 minutes in the bin, one doesn't. It's just...
Or even just while we're waiting to set
but
up.
There's so many different camera angles as well, which obviously
and they seem to find certain camera angles at certain times which suit certain cases.
Yeah. And it just, I don't know if you go with a point of view from the referee. That'd be an interesting view with a GoPro.
Hasn't that been tried?
GoPro on the forehead or something, so you can see what he's looking at.
Years ago.
Yeah, but all the different angles obviously makes for different watching from what you're looking at. But they're never going to catch every single one unless you're stopping the game like the NFL with every play gets broken down and there's a stoppage after every play of the ball. But even then, they're still going to miss some.
Even then, the bunkers got a lot wrong.
Haven't they what?
Just some of it, and some of it's fast. Some of the rulings, when the commentators and everyone at home's baffled, you're like, what are you looking at? Particularly around loose carries, strips this weekend especially. I seem to notice there was 4 or 5, where one game it was one thing.
That's probably one of the biggest grey areas in the game, to be honest. Like, what's striking at a ball, what's trying to rip it out, what's not. And then, some result in tries, some result in penalties, some no tries, who knows.
Take your luck when it's in, I suppose.
Exactly.
Anything else you want to talk about from the week, apart from the games themselves?
Well, Payne Haas now apparently has $1 million contract on the table from Brisbane.
Yeah, isn't it funny how he's mentioned in the News Limited papers, Bulldogs and Tigers, and next minute there's $1 million offer from Brisbane. But apparently, according to Buzz this afternoon, he's going to reject it.
Yeah, right.
I don't know what he wants in life, apart from more money, but you'd think coming to any Sydney club or Melbourne club, surely Brisbane are, if you want to win a comp, surely Brisbane are in as good a position as any club
No, absolutely.
in the comp. To win a comp,
Maybe it's Melbourne.
if you can get 1.5 from, but like, if you're going to take 1.4 from
Nelson,
from the Tigers or the Dogs, well, you're not going far in life, are you?
No, I don't think.
I think Melbourne seems to be where
Yeah, I got a funny feeling it's going to be Melbourne or the Roosters. You probably seem to be taking a step backwards going to the Roosters. It'd be a very fucking handy pickup for the Sharks, and we would probably bump them up a couple of spots on the ladder if you had him putting out what he does every week. Yeah, very interesting. Whether it's all just talk and he is chasing a premiership, or whether he's just chasing the money. We're not. Like I said, we've got to find out for a couple of weeks by the looks of it.
There's not too many teams you would say are in a better premier position than, unless you're signing at Penrith next week. You'd think Brisbane.
Penrith.
If you had to put money on one team to win a comp in the next 5 years, it'd be Brisbane.
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll see how that all plays out. It'll all be posturing. You'll get 1.2 instead of 1.1 or something. But what's that like? And the thing is, how suddenly do Melbourne have this under the bonnet? I know they're potentially carrying a lot, but they've got a pretty expensive spine, I would have thought.
Yeah, they do. But I dare say most of their pack's not on a huge amount of money. So
anyway, we'll see how that plays out.
Some of the outside backs wouldn't be on your Seves and that of the world wouldn't be on a lot of money. So.
As people know, we don't tend to spend lots of time on speculation because it generally either doesn't get as far or we look stupid. But
both. Constantly.
Maybe it's $1.80 Brisbane and $2.60 Melbourne, if that's the way you're thinking. I couldn't imagine.
I don't think that Brisbane come back again though. If he knocks them back this time.
Well, at some point you got to say thanks, mate. Cheers.
So we're off him at the back end of last year, and then this is the second time he's knocked. Like if he does knock them back again now, that's the second time. Do you go back to the well a third time when you just cut your losses and
$1 million?
Like I know he's been a fantastic player for him, but. Get two front rowers to do the same job for one bloke.
I know Flegler's going as well, but like you said, you're going to pull out names, go and get Max King and Stefano for $1 million between them, and it's not quite paying us, but it's not far off really. Yeah. And when you've still got Willison and Palacia and Carrigan there. Interesting to see how it plays out, I suppose. Yeah, not much else has happened this week really, apart from some wacky shit in some of these games, which we'll get to. We may as well get to it. Roosters 26, Manly 16 kicks us off, featuring the highlight of the night, that classic comedy duo, Tedesco and Klein. What a team they are. Tell us some stats.
I laughed at Klein quite a bit during the night.
Fuck me, honestly. If you want to play a drinking game, have a shot every time Tedesco whinges about something, because fuck me, you wouldn't last 80 minutes. He's now the worst in the game.
Well, you wouldn't have got through this one if you weren't.
And I think it's daylight to
every
the Parramatta
time
players.
Fucking Klein blew the whistle because it was 34 or 36 times or something. He fucking stopped the play. 5 tries to 3 out of 5 conversions, 1 out of 3 for Manly, 1 out of 1 penalty attempt for the Manly side, 75% completion played, 88% from Manly, 197 plus running metres for the Roosters, 6 line breaks to 3, 34 tackle busts from both teams. 12 offloads to 9, 2 forced dropouts from both sides. A 40-20 kicked by the Roosters, 323 tackles played, 280, 11 errors to 9, 15 penalties conceded from the Roosters, 6 from the Manly side, 4 ruck infringements to 5, 3 inside the 10s to 1, and a send-off for the Sydney Roosters and a sin bin for the Manly side.
I did also enjoy the fact that Klein kept warning the Roosters about penalties. And then when the penalty count was 10-6 against the Roosters, he binned the Manly player. Classic Ash. That's fun stuff.
Billy Smith with 100 Supercoach points. Daniel Tupu with 97. Then we had 2 other Roosters players before we got down to Hamoli Olakawatu on 79.
Good game of footy.
Yeah.
It took a long time for Manly to get going.
Well, I thought they were on top early. I thought they were actually probably doing some of the better work in the first 10 or 15 minutes. They had multiple sets in some decent positions. But they just couldn't create anything. Like Schuster towards the back end of the game.
Schuster was fixing to be Schuster was like penned in to be pop player of the week this week until the last 10 minutes.
Yeah, the back end of the game he got warm, but at the start he seemed to break down every time it got anywhere
he
near
had one
him.
run meter in the first hour.
Yeah, right. They just couldn't create enough pressure or any real opportunities, even though they were on the front foot. The Roosters, I thought, had a clear plan to get the ball to the edges and really test these Manly centres. And once again, which seems to happen every second or third game for Manly, their outside backs just couldn't defend well enough to stop some of this work that was being done, especially out of the likes of Billy Smith and Tupu on that left edge. Manu decided to get involved with the dummy half barge over with some physicality that he seems to be able to. He must be a strong man. Like, the way he throws some blokes around when they try to tackle him is ridiculous.
I think there's a number of players on record that he's the hardest bloke to tackle in the game, and it shows.
Yeah.
I mean, and by the way, I did suggest that perhaps he should spend some time at dummy half.
You did, yes.
So it was good to see that produced the next week.
Yep.
I liked also, but on the outside backs, the three big names, well, 2 plus Billy Smith, who was fantastic, probably the best player on the field, in my humble, went looking as well. Suali went looking, Manu went looking, and they
worked back through the middle of the field.
Came back through, and that was the difference. I thought they looked like a better team for it.
Yeah, well, that's when they started to really get the middle back, because I thought Manly sort of did own that middle for 15, 20 minutes, and then as soon as they got the points through Tupu at the first try, that's when you did see the wingers and centres start folding back in and doing some of that grunt work in the middle. And then the forwards jumped on the back of it. They looked really comfortable for the majority of the rest of this game, like right up until sort of the last 15 minutes, when you'll see this is a common theme through this weekend, but I thought the Roosters clocked off for the last 15, 20 minutes. Penrith did it. Broncos did it. There's a few others that did as well, but we'll mention that as we get to it. But I thought they just sort of kicked it back a gear and cruised through for the last 20 minutes, which let Manly get a few opportunities that they probably didn't really deserve at the back end of this game.
Olakau'atu just they were just too tired to be like, oh, well, they can beat us up, we can score, and a chip and chase. Or Schuster had done fuck all till then. They're just sort of like, Robbo shouts at them a bit, and they go, oh, well,
we won. It's all right.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. All they've got to do is keep winning from now. Another team that was in and around, sniffing around that bottom of the 8, and they've done their chances no real good here with this Manly side.
No, Manly done.
Newcastle's jumped into that position that Manly could have held up with, just outside the 8. And
we're in and around the 8 now. Roosters have Dolphins, Eels, Tigers, and Bunnies.
All right.
They couldn't win
all
of those. 4. There's
none
8
of those
points.
are going great.
They're falling against these shit house, but they could put some points on as well. Mm-hmm. I think they're a live chance. They're a live chance of somehow salvaging this season and finishing 7th or 8th, I think.
Yeah, obviously depending on
they would have preferred
results. They still need results to go their way.
Get beat this week.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought the halves were decent for Manly. Sipley and Croker had very good games. I thought Sipley was probably their best forward. He was doing a lot with the ball, and Croker was good. Actually, Hamole was their best forward, but that was flattered also, as you said, by a couple of...
And Sipley was that left sort of by himself once Lodge broke down. And
yep.
Did Woods have an injury, or he just didn't do much?
Just did a Woods, I think.
Yeah, I think
Garrick had a very good game. Also out the back there, Butcher and Collins were decent. So was Jared Warrior-Hargraves. I thought Sia Wong was very good in this game. He had really ripped in
got
through the middle.
A mountain of defensive work. I think he cracked the 50 tackles, if I can find it here.
Swali and Tupu were also very good. Smith and Tedesco were great in attack. Smith had a couple of little issues there in defence at different times, but he was brilliant with the ball in his hand. And, I thought Manu was awesome again. Like, he doesn't really make a lot of mistakes, and he's very physical running the ball. And I think that dummy half try probably turned the match a fair way into the Roosters' favour, and then they sort of jumped on the back of that. He made a couple of nice long runs as well, breaking tackles and putting the Roosters in the backfield to get into good position. So I thought he was my man of the match. But
as I said earlier, I like the fact all 3 went looking for work and all got through that work pretty well. Swaley, same again. He's a beautiful kicker.
He's
got some stuff to, he's got other strings to his bow. I know we've been harsh on him, but he's got other strings to his bow that maybe we don't necessarily see. But, that's all for rugby to worry about. I just want to echo what you said about Sia Wong. They did a fantastic game, and I was surprised to see how much defensive work he got through. And in a team where there's, just work out if that's Hums.
Obviously
me,
got
or
a
is that-
few more minutes than he normally would with Brown getting sent off.
Yeah,
but
well, is Crichton has he just disappeared?
It looks
is he
like
back to
it,
the,
yeah.
Is he back to the?
I don't
say
remember.
something, George.
Don't remember him copping an injury.
Just something like, is he just back in? Like in the
Reggie's,
year off?
yeah,
Is it
Reggie's,
Reggie's? I haven't studied enough. Someone will let us know that we haven't done our homework properly.
No,
Uh,
mate, we do 3 or 4 hours worth of homework every week,
no.
as well as watch every game.
Try watching
Come
all
on.
these games. Actually watching all these games.
Yeah,
And having to
mate,
tell you
every minute of
misses.
it. 10 hours a week of watching footy.
So I thought it was good enough signs to Roosters. I
still don't see him.
disappointed in Cheese. I thought his service for a great part of this game was actually poor at times.
Yeah, he's gone backwards. He
there's a
doesn't
few
look
times
like
where
a
I
first-grade dummy
was
half
going to message
anymore.
and actually bag him, but he then either came good or did something different. I'm
What,
starting
3
to
years
think
ago, he was
I'm-
first pick
for
New Zealand hooker. I don't think he gets anywhere near it now.
I'm starting to think maybe one of the keys here is they go looking for, and it's easy to say because where do you go and find a hooker, but a quality first-grade hooker. But I'm starting to think maybe they've got to try and make him a link man and move Radley to an edge. I think there's probably
Well,
merit
half
there.
the teams,
Or do you go back and make him bowling ball Cheese? Just say
Yeah, I
you're
think so.
fucking playing
You're
front
gonna
row.
have to go
Get out
play-
there and
Play 13 or a
Either
second
way, yeah.
front rower. Because you can see like hookers are probably close to being as rare as halves these days. Like you've got
That's
some
right.
of the better teams that have manufactured blokes like Lachlan Croker, who was a 6 most of his career, Phoenix Crossan, that are both going quite well, tackling their ass off.
And young Walters is going pretty well too now.
Yeah.
They've all sort of found their niche, but it takes time to get there. Most hookers, I'd say most of the top hookers are manufactured these days.
Yeah, well, Mitch Kenny's probably not a natural hooker.
More of a lock.
More of
that's
a
playing.
back rower, maybe. So
Yeah, it's interesting. So I just thought, I just think if they're going next year, maybe it's time to just say, look, you're not a hooker. Try him as a link. Put Radley on the edge. That can open him up to some more try scoring opportunity.
it was pretty disappointing, really, because I had high hopes for him coming into this
We all
Roosters
did.
squad.
Well, we all thought they were going to win the comp, and it would be amazing, and you'll get them all going. But maybe Bellamy was right. Anyway,
Generally seems to be more right than
That's
wrong.
true.
No, Manu 3 points, had Billy Smith with the 2, and then either pick between Teddy or Hamole for the 1.
I had them flipped because I thought it was Billy Smith's best game of first grade, and I thought he, and if a
Did
bit
score
lucky,
a
probably
couple
gets another, and he
tries,
probably gets
yeah.
another try assist.
Yeah,
Bit of
true.
luck. So
Yeah,
that's why I
switch
went
him
that
around,
way. And I thought
that's
he had
fine.
his hands more on the ball than Manu.
Yep.
I had Swahili for 1, but I am also happy to go with Teddy because realistically we probably should.
Yeah, we'll give Teddy the 1.
No worries. And I'm just going to try to fix this weird noise. Are you getting a weird noise in your headset?
I think it's a truck parked over there.
Worries. Yeah, no other talking points from the Chooks. That sound seems to have gone, so it looks like it was a truck.
No, mate. No, they're going to be interesting how they shape up over the next few weeks. They've got some challenges there, but
Yeah. Any final word on Ashley Klein?
oh, mate, it was one of the worst performances I think I've seen for many a year, to be honest. I don't know why he feels the need to get his head involved in every single little fucking thing. There was a period there for about 20 minutes where I think he blew his whistle every 30 to 40 seconds. It was just painful to watch at times.
But as I said, Tedesco's now really starting to grow on me as well. Jeez, he can whinge.
Ken Winge.
Anytime someone will score, make a 60-metre break untouched and run away and score, and you'll whinge about it somewhere. So
Captain's challenge.
anyway, all right. Next up, we've got the NRLW's in the way there. Let me just read through this. Results from the NRLW from the weekend. Roosters 30, Dragons 0, Broncos 40, Cowboys 0, Titans 10-8 over the Sharks, Knights 38-4 over the Eels, and 28-22 the Raiders held on against the Tigers in not a bad game of footy. It was one I saw. Actually, I saw the Newcastle game as well. They looked quite sharp. But anyway, some good stuff happening in the NRLW. Some good stuff happened in this game too. A very physical game, 28-18. The Warriors and the Titans clashed. Jared Sutton running a close Quinella with one of the worst refereeing performances of the weekend. I'm going to wrap the referee. I thought actually, apart from a couple of the bunker decisions, Chris Goff had a pretty good game in the Tigers game, I thought. But that's a different story. If we're slapping, I've got to salute along the way, I suppose. 2018 now. This was marred by the early send-off. There was some slapping in this game. It was very physical first half. But ultimately, I guess, class prevailed. What did the stats say?
Yeah, we had 3 tries for the Titans, 5 for the Warriors. 3 out of 3 conversions, played 4 out of 5. 86% completion from the Titans. 71% completion from the Warriors. 395 plus running metres and 153 plus post-contact metres for the Warriors side. 4 line breaks to 7, 35 tackle busts to 41. 7 offloads to 9, 2 forced dropouts from both teams. 345 tackles played, 296. 7 errors to 12, 6 penalties conceded to 5. 2 ruck infringements to 1, 1 inside the 10 against the Titans. A send-off for the Titans and a sin bin for the Warriors. Sean Johnson with 149 Supercoach points, David Fafita with 94, and then you had Jaden Campbell and Jackson Ford with 93.
Well, this was a pretty competitive game for a large chunk.
Considering you had a bloke in the bin for 63 minutes or whatever
exactly.
it was.
And especially, it wasn't anyway, it was, one of their best forwards.
Yes.
They were very brave.
Recently, he's been their best forward.
Their form forward. And the irony, the absolute irony, everyone, of it was our draft grand final this weekend, and Mo's biggest fan.
Yes.
Lost our draft grand final by 6 points in the end. I'm fairly certain if Mo had stayed on, he scores at least 6 points.
You would think so.
Well, he gets at least gets 0, which gets me to 2.
Minus 4,
he only has to get 3 more to win anyway. After spruiking him, but as we said, look, I thought 10 minutes would have sufficed. I don't think there was malice in it. And I saw the shot today of the Chris Randall tackle, which you'd argue may have even looked worse at certain angles. That all being said, it was a very physical contest. Played a pretty good clip, and I thought the Titans matched them for a great chunk of this.
They're probably the better team.
And for the first half, definitely were. Until fitness got through, they started out really physical first 20 minutes, and then ended up banging it all down with 3 good dummy half runs where, Randall, and I've just had my blank. Second hit up was the next hooker, and Fafita ended up doing the same and belted the door down to get him going. And then Johnson clicked into gear, and next 2 tries came from 2 very, very good bits of individual brilliance. So
that running game, wasn't it?
And then to level a sensational second try where he levelled Fafita straight over the top out to Dallin, who then fought off 3 blokes and flicked back to him.
Stupid round the back.
One of the tries. One of the tries of the round was very
good. So they
good.
should give like 10 or 15 Supercoach points for just stupidly brilliant bits of football. And that was one of them. I don't know how he gets the ball back
Johnson
from there.
would have gotten it, because he should have got he should have tackle bust, a line break assist.
Yeah.
A try assist and the try, really. But anyway.
I don't know if he can get the try assist for his own try, but
sometimes
maybe.
They definitely
with
should.
With a grubber and a kick, he probably could. But no, that round the back pass would have to probably be the try assist for that one. As you mentioned, good tough 15, 20 minutes, capped off with the decapitation of poor old Charles Nichols-Glockstad. Got him. Like, you run into that. You see the replay from behind Charles, and you just see the size of that shoulder and the head just, absolutely cleaned up. A couple of minutes later, the Hetherington-inspired 10-minute slapping sin bin. So that's
the first semi-final for the slap contest this year.
The second bloke and the third sin binning for slapping this year. Fantastic. Titans seemed to lift a peg when Mo got sent off, to be honest. They really seemed to amp up the intensity, and the running game was from Jaden Campbell was sublime at times, the way he just cut through the defence and ran into the backfield, causing all sorts of problems. You mentioned the David Fafita barge over and the 2 lovely tries from Sean Johnson. He's not as involved as he was when he was a 19, 20-year-old with the way that he would run into the line, but he just does it so much better these days. Yeah. Like, it's just so much more calculated, and just the timing of it's perfection. The way he left blokes grabbing for air as he just stepped back inside him and scored the first one and then set the second one up.
It's almost, the story is almost, without the actual results-based success, mirrors what Benji Marshall did, whereas his last 3 or 4 years, especially his last couple of years at Tigers, he was almost better in some ways. It's just his timing and his game control, and this is what we're getting here.
The Warriors seemed to settle a little bit after obviously those 2 tries, and they put a bit more energy back into the middle of the field, and that's sort of where they took the toll on the Titans, and I think that's sort of where they really gassed them in that last sort of 15 minutes of this first half is where they took a lot of energy out of the Titans, being a man down for the entirety of of an hour. The Warriors really should have put them away a lot earlier than what they did. I was so surprised at the back end of this game with 7 minutes to go that they were still. The Titans were 2 points behind, I think it was, with 7 minutes to go. Or the scores might have been. I think it was even, wasn't it? 18 all or something.
18 all in the last 2 tries.
With the last 7 minutes of this game, for them to get that far is just ridiculously good. Like the way that they were just supporting each other and their defense held up. Like
they have found a bit of mongrel under old mate. His name is
the interim coach. Yeah, absolutely. They've been a different team. The intercept from Jaden Campbell, 80 metres downfield, was a piece of brilliance off his bat. As I said, it just still astounds me how they were so close with 7 minutes to go and probably could have snatched the game at one point, but then fatigue just got them and absolutely killed them at the back end with a barge over, and there was a nice lovely little kick for Dallin to get his try that he seems to get every week these days. He gets a minimum of 1 try, but another lovely leap for the flying perm to score over in the corner with the Sean Johnson kick. It was
an absolute I didn't have one. It was an absolute special for a multi there. All the classics for Feeder, Johnson, Campbell, Dallin and Ford, all would have been on show, but he had a good game, Jackson Ford, too. He was fantastic. Either wrapping back around or just testing the edges as he always does. Had a really good season. I thought both, when on the field, both back rows were good. Yep. And Barnett was good again. I think they said when they focus back through that middle, they're as good a team as anyone.
Yeah, well, I did have a big rap on him at the start of the year. I thought he'd make a massive difference for this Warriors team, and it's proved to be correct. One thing that I got correct during the year. I thought Brian Kelly had another good game. He's been in pretty good form recently, as well as Stimson was decent in the middle of the field, considering how light they were.
Well, they got through a mountain of work there, those Titans forwards.
Liu, Clark and Boyd all had very good games, and Fafita was really good again. Randall and Campbell were just fantastic with the work that they put out. I think that's 3 or 4 games on the trot where Randall's been one of their best players. I know he was back into last year, he was one of their best players as well, and he sort of didn't get the time earlier this year, but he's proved himself again to be a fantastic first grader. So Dallin was the best of the back 5 for the Warriors. You mentioned Barnett. Egan, I thought, was good again. The depth of pass he gets out of dummy half and the way he can, the pace of that bullet when he throws it off the ground to get it out to Johnson really opens up a bit of space for him to do some work. Fanua Blake was very good again. So was Harris. They're just very good every way.
They're just awesome.
Just fantastic players. You mentioned Ford, and I thought he was probably their best forward. Sean Johnson was brilliant. He took every opportunity that he was afforded to him, and I thought he was the man of the match. I gave Jaden Campbell the 2 points because without him, they probably get beaten 30 or 40-0. And then I had either Ford or Randall for the 1.
Yeah, I had Ford, Randall, Tohu. Yeah. Because, it was great to see Tohu get the match-breaking try. But he got through his mountainous work as well, and he's just hard not to like.
Let's give it to Tohu.
No, well, I was going to give it to Ford, but
okay, let's give it to Ford.
But you're right.
Randall was right up there. So was Tohu Harris. But
do they need to find a way to get Jaden Campbell?
Absolutely.
To 1?
Well, there was talk before kickoff when because AJ got ruled out.
Apparently it might not be a short. It might be a couple of weeks.
Yeah. Okay. He got ruled out in the warm up, but I think that was a bit of a cloak and daggers bullshit. I think they already knew he wasn't going to play, and they just put him out there to warm up just to keep
I think he's been carrying it
the
since
Warriors
Origin.
guessing. So, but there was talk that they were going to play him at centre anyway, even if he did get through the warm up with Campbell playing at fullback, and probably not a bad option because AJ's not the easiest man to bring down 1-on-1, and if you can get him some 1-on-1 time up against a bigger or a slower man,
especially
out
if they're looking to offload Shoop anyway, you may as well try it.
Might not be the best defensive option, but
he lets him get in around dummy half a little bit more.
Yeah,
he can still
do some scoops,
follow through the middle. Just
you'd be able to beat blokes with pace and footwork out in the centres. So
there's nothing to lose.
Absolutely not. And Jaden Campbell's been brilliant at fullbacks for the last 3 or 4 weeks since AJ hasn't been able to play back there. So it just makes sense, really.
Yeah, you've got to say they're probably in as good a form as they've been in the last
Yeah,
month,
absolutely.
Titans. And
Last couple of years.
interesting because this is, fairly certain this is what they've got to work with for the next year as well. So it's how you then, I think you then got to spend an off-season getting Campbell up and going properly and then work out what you do with AJ because obviously he's too good a player not to be in
Keep
the 13.
Verrills fit.
And I know he used to play hooker a long time ago, but
Obviously,
don't
Foreign's
think
not far away, so they need
maybe
another option
maybe
there.
the 6
But
is back on the table for him. Don't know if it necessarily worked, but I assume Ben Hunt would be top of the pops there if they're trying to find someone. But
absolutely.
look, what
And Tanner Boyd would fit in at 6 if
Yeah.
you were going to play Hunt at 7.
Yeah.
But
And on the Warriors, I'm suggesting their top 2 or 3.
yep, this probably
I
wasn't
think
their best performance in the middle.
It wasn't,
Uh,
but I think you're also allowed to say that we're often critical. I think you're also allowed to say Titans played really well.
yeah, absolutely.
And so Warriors had to work. The more I think about it, the more if I'm going to stack them up against Brisbane or Penrith, what concerns me, say a prelim final or a final is perhaps their outside backs in that a Staggs, a Crichton, a Herbie, who was outstanding. We'll get to him in a minute. Can blow games open, whereas obviously Dallon's having a career season, but your Berries and Pompies are maybe that level below, and especially once you start moving them left and right.
Pompey did have a few errors in this one as well.
I think that's where I'm a little concerned about when they have to really play that grand final or close enough.
Yep.
Speaking
You know
of,
they're going to be targeted.
oh, exactly right. 26-16, though, speaking of grand finals are close enough. This is a very good Penrith team.
You reckon?
Our man Action had a moment during the game.
Didn't he
and,
what?
and happy 40th to him, the great man, where he just realised his love for life and not being dead, and apparently that's all thanks to Jerome Luai. So we all have our own ways and means of finding that thought in life, but this was a very, very, very good game from the Penrith Panthers.
Another brilliant performance, second week in a row where they just basically did whatever the hell they wanted for 60 minutes of a game of footy. 4 tries to 1, 3 out of 4 conversions, a missed conversion for the Storm, 2 out of 2 penalty attempts for Penrith, 1 out of 1 for the Melbourne Storm. 85% completion, played 71%, 502 plus running metres, and 169 for the Penrith post-contact metres for the Penrith side. 6 line breaks to 4, 30 tackle busts to 23, 9 offloads to 13, 2 forced dropouts forced by Penrith, 1 forced by the Storm, 323 tackles played, 380, 8 errors to 12, 6 penalties conceded to 9, 1 inside the 10 for both teams. Brian To'o with 108 Supercoach points, Cleary with 103, and young Tonamapia with 82.
I'm sort of going to work backwards a little bit here. I don't know if it makes sense, but when I got to the end and said, I thought about who I'm going to give Daggy M points to, I actually have no idea because I'm like, you could give points to just about anyone in this Penrith team because I thought they were fantastic.
Just about.
But we'll get there. But Fisher Harris, nearly 200 metres. Yo was fantastic.
Cleary,
Crichton,
Luai.
2-0. Cleary. Luai, I was fixing to nearly give 3 to, but he's a dickbag, so. But he might still get some. They were all just outstanding. And what's scary here is, like you said, sort of in the intro, they half clocked off at the end.
Yeah.
But also, I think if Tango's on the field, they get 50 here.
Probably.
Because, and Zach Hosting tried very hard and did a lot right, but a couple of flicks
Yeah,
went
did
to
a couple of
touch,
nice
a couple
passes.
of times
Yeah.
he looked shocked to have
Had
the ball.
one bounce off his face.
Whereas if someone like a Tango's out, they bust even more. And that's what's scary, that there's better to come from this team. Even a Peachy maybe handles that situation better, but Hosting had a great game. Again, I wouldn't, if you turn around and said you wouldn't give him a point, I wouldn't even argue, to be honest. But
I was a little bit disappointed because this was exactly the same way as they played against the Sharks last week.
Yeah.
And I think, the Sharks were probably just given a little bit, probably a little bit underrated on the performance that they did to keep Penrith out for as long as they did, because Penrith did not let up against the Sharks. Even in the last 5 minutes, they were coming and coming. And then the last 15 of this one, they just went, it's Melbourne. It's okay. We'll take it easy on Melbourne for the last 15 to 20 minutes. It dead set felt like they were just pity. They were playing a bit of pity football in the last 15 minutes for the Melbourne side, because I thought they could have just completely torn them apart at the back end of this game.
I sort of agree. And it's a hard game to analyse. Just on Melbourne quickly.
It's as close to a perfect hour of football.
It was genuinely. Like, this was watching the best. More than analysing this game, it made me think: are they the best team? This last 3 years of the modern era of NRL footy, and look at statistically, they are. They're probably another comp, but you'd put them up against, them against an 07.
Any team I've seen.
An 07, 09 Melbourne would stack up really well. I think that could because they wouldn't get pulled apart, and it's a defence that it comes off, but they wouldn't get pulled apart by necessarily a Cronk or an Inglis or a Smith. They would. What they're great at is just, as you've said a lot, staying in their zones and making sure it all. They work with each other. They trust each other. Their scramble is amazing. Like there was times where they were found out, and there's three blokes to chop down. It's,
like you saw the first little bit where Melbourne did manage to get the first points of the game, and it was an early shift where they did get caught out, but they still got the men across there. A lovely kick, and then Jennings manages to run down and get on top of it. And there's still blokes there. They jump on top of him, bust his knee, the poor bastard. He gets up and plays the ball, and then they were shot. Any team would be shot in that position. Tonamapia, if they shifted it, I reckon Penrith probably would have shut it down because they were shifting that way. It was just the fact that Tonamapia took it himself and went straight at Hoskins, who was standing on the line and probably didn't come up that 5 metres where he should have. And he was able to barge over the top of him. But I think they had that shift covered, even though they were all still running back, trying to chase a ball that's been kicked 30 metres down the field, and the bloke's just chasing the ball everywhere. But they're just so clinical in everything that they do. You see, it comes down to the lines that they run, the way that their defence moves. They don't panic. The men just fold in behind each other. You've got the two blokes pushing out, and the winger will drop back and start heading towards the fullback. And then the fullback starts coming back towards the corner. Just they're covering each other in every position. So if the bloke does step back inside, the winger's already folded around. He's got the man that's stepping back inside. If he brushes through and gets passed down the wing, the fullback's coming across to push him into touch. It's just they must be so clinical in the way they train and the procedures that they set up.
And we've seen how well others plug into. The big raps on your Melbournes over the years, and to a lesser extent, your mid-2000s baby Broncos, where they could plug people in and still get away. And this is exactly what they're doing. They went a month with it, and even a year ago, actually, they went a month without clear and looked vulnerable. Whereas here they
that's
look better. How much of this is a diluted pool? That's maybe in that if you're really going to temper it or be nitpicky, it's maybe what you think. Maybe everyone else is weaker.
Well, Penrith's Melbourne's forward pack, we've had question marks around the whole year. But the fact that Penrith, they're just another thing, they're just fitter than everyone else. You can tell the way that they go.
They don't Melbourne make the fatigue errors. Look at compare it to Canberra, who are now in a start. Look at Sharks. Sharks let South back into that game because they start just dropping every second ball thrown around.
Because their forwards aren't fit enough. Like they've got some big guys in there, but they play 20, 30 minutes. And if you extend them past that 20, 30 minutes, they start falling off tackles. They start, their hit-ups are soft and they get smacked and drop the ball. And it's just the way it is. They're obviously not quite fit enough. But you see Penrith, they just, after 15 minutes of this game, they went up a gear.
Yeah.
And then every 10-minute increments after that, they went up another gear, and they went up another gear until the 60th minute, and they kicked it back down and just, floated through the rest of the game. But the way they just continually...
They're never going to rack up. Even last
year...
Push
the points.
Melbourne racked up twice the points. They racked up the 50s at their best. Penrith are happy to win by 20. Penrith are happy to win by 6.
Yeah, they just push they increase the pace, they increase the physicality and go, come with us. Come on. Keep coming. You're going to break. When are you going to break? Yeah. Let's go. Right? Keep going. You just fall apart by the end of the game. You just cannot keep up with them. It's ridiculous.
This made me start thinking along the lines of your 03 Steve Waugh cricket teams, and do we need to, or I guess you could even say that Queensland dynasty. Do you need to actually at some point just sit back and go, we're watching as good as we're going to see here at the time and in that time?
I reckon you could put them up against some of the rep teams running around at the moment, and they'd go very close to beating.
I'd beat most international teams. And as we've said, International Rugby League is a drop in grade. If you took either Origin team without the Penrith players in it, it'd be a good game.
Yeah.
I would have to think about that.
That's the kind of stuff that.
But you're
they
right.
are
In terms of the trust they have, and in terms of the work they do for each other, if I had to, maybe comparing to like an 03 Steve Ward cricket team, I'd love to see them a bit more magnanimous at times. They are a bit arrogant, but
when you're that good, I guess you're allowed to be.
Exactly.
They said they sort
not all of them either. It's
floated through the last 15 and 20 minutes of the game, but they'd already made their point by now, and everybody in the competition would have in the last 2 weeks have well and truly been served their notice. So you're going to have to be a hell of a lot better just to get close to this team at the moment, the way they're going.
Well, and it's better to come. Like I said, Tungo goes back in, Lenu goes back in, Leota goes back in.
Cleary's third game next week. He's only been back for 2 games.
It's mainly Lenu and Tungo now, isn't it?
Yeah, that's about it. But what do you say? They just find a way to put teams away, especially, and they get point. It doesn't matter whether they're in front or behind. They just find points when they need them. They find ways to stop tries when they need to do it. It's just happens. I thought Meany was okay. Welch, Liera were the best of the forwards for the Melbourne team. Pezzett had a decent game. He's always looked there or thereabouts when he's played for this Melbourne team. Munster and Grant were very good. They tried hard, but couldn't create a great deal. Ton Mapia was their best player on the field. He had considering he's been out for however long, I thought he was very physical and aggressive and had a good game. You can mention the whole Penrith side, as you said, but Fish, Martin, Sorensen, very good. Leo were, and Brian Toto were great. Cleary was the puppet master who just put it all together as he generally does. Most weeks I was tossing up between Brian Toto or Cleary for the 3 points. I couldn't really quite work it out. I suppose Toto probably doesn't get the opportunities if Cleary doesn't do what he does on the inside of the field before it gets out to him. So
my gut was 2-0.
Yeah.
And in that, same as you,
racked up the 200 metres again, tries and
then I was thinking Fish, Yo,
Toto, Cleary. I had Tonopia or Yo, but
give it to Yo. And I'm going to I can't give one. Yes, Tonopia was good. We can't give it to Melbourne.
No, fair enough.
And like I said, I could give points to Luai, Hosking, Fish, Sorensen, Martin. So unfortunately they've got to divvy it up between themselves. But very, very impressive, and it will be a mighty effort from. I actually, the more I think about it, the more I think Brisbane are the only hope, and they would have to play out of their skins.
Obviously, injury and suspension could become part in the last 4 weeks before we get to finals, but barring anything...
Or driving somewhere near you. The team bus might not be ideal either.
Oh, I get run over, mate. I'm the one that's getting out of the way, all right? If I get a bigger truck, maybe. But, barring anything going wrong for this Penrith side, I can see them being almost impossible to beat at the moment, so...
Yeah. My beer's empty. Super Saturday kicked off where we got to see for the first time the Broncos on a dry track. And they definitely had a crack at some dry track footy, but what did the stats say?
Didn't they what? 3 tries to 5, 0 out of 3 conversions for the Cowboys, 4 out of 5 for the Broncos, 1 out of 1 penalty attempts for both teams, 78% completion, played 67%, 176 plus running metres for the Broncos, 6 line breaks to 9, 36 tackle busts to 47 for Brisbane, 11 offloads to 16, 1 forced drop out to 2, 321 tackles played, 361, 12 errors from the Cowboys, 15 from Brisbane, 2 penalties conceded to 7, 2 ruck infringements to 1. Perfect Paddy with 125 Supercoach points, Kyle Felt with 104, and Payne Haas with 85. Another one of these matchups that just... felt like earlier it'd be pretty close. There was back and forth, a bit of physical stuff in the middle of the field. Both teams taking turns at having a crack at each other's line in that 15-20 minute period, and it just turned out to be completely the other way around by the end of the match. Just like Broncos absolutely took control, and it was pretty dominant, I thought.
This actually flattered the Cowboys, you score.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Because what happened was I think they saw the conditions and they just decided we're going to move the ball early and often and threw the ball around, tried to get their edges involved as much as they could.
Yep.
And as a result, there's a few, always said they led for the 15-12 error count, and a lot of that was, if half of them come off, they probably all lead to tries.
Yeah.
Like
it ends up being 50.
Yeah, like there's flicks and bumps and stuff where if it doesn't, if it's not an error, it's a try. So
Correct.
it's 50, and that was the first thing I want to say. And secondly, they just belted the shit out of the Cowboys.
The physicality.
The
After
physicality
20
won this
minutes.
game. Yeah, it was the Cowboys up to start
Like
with.
it was
but then
tough
they
to
just,
start, and then as
once
soon
it
as
got
the
into it-
Broncos ramped it up, they just were absolutely
Yeah.
throwing bodies left, right, and centre.
Yeah, and they really, I thought this was a nice statement, especially missing Reynolds. This was a good statement, and it was good to watch.
Really
it was
good.
fun to watch.
They played really well without Reynolds.
Yeah.
Like I know they went a bit more back to Walsh at the back, which did come to creating a few errors, but it also created quite a few opportunities.
But as
Especially
I've said about him all
down
year,
that right side with Staggs.
he has these games where if it clicks, he scores nearly 4 tries himself, but a lot of the time it just doesn't. So.
And him and Staggs combined, they're bringing up a real nice combination on that right edge. It's going to be hard to stop at times. Their scramble defence again was really good, especially early in this game where the Cowboys did have a few opportunities to in and at the line, and they saved one at least, probably 2 tries early in this game, which probably led to them being able to get hold of that dominance after about 20 minutes. So funny how many games go back and forth for 15, 20 minutes, and then one team just goes, "Nah, we're going to belt you today." That's pretty much what happened here. Cowboys are absolutely terrified at points when either Carrigan or Walsh had got the ball on that right edge. They're either going to Carrigan short or Walsh out the back, and then the defence was just standing there going, "Oh fuck, what's going? Which one of them's coming at us?"
It's the second week in a row where Carrigan's been the best back rower in the comp. Yeah. He was phenomenal here, and
brushing blokes off,
more so
throwing
than,
offloads.
I mean, I wouldn't be offended if it became permanent, but more so than that, if you think along more the lines of like an Australian team who's now lost an Angus Crichton, and you just put him at back row and you can do the job. And then you can have your Yo and your Murray fight out the other position because who gives a shit? Like you're getting the same result.
I think they'll try and get Ricky back in there just because he lays that that running line. He doesn't have probably as much skill set as what Carrigan brings, but he does have that really tough carry.
Brings he shores up the middle and
goes back into the middle of the field and starts doing it there.
The link man again. So.
Doesn't get as much output for some reason when he's playing that link man. I think obviously it's a bit more because he's trying to get the ball.
A lot of it's feeding Reynolds or
linking up with Reynolds or
Walsh
playing short balls to some of the other forwards that come through the middle. But
whereas in that position, he's the receiver rather than the feeder. So he did it fantastically. Great hole. That hole great to score that try.
There's some really lovely direct running in and around that sort of Walsh, obviously, whether they go to Carrigan early and the changes of angles from Staggs coming back inside and staying on the outside of Walsh. Just absolutely carved up that edge for the Cowboys. They didn't know what was going on. Obviously, missing Val, I don't know if it helps or hinders. Like, obviously, he has his good days in defence and his bad days in defence, but that's where they went. Like, it's exactly the hole that they went at for the entirety of the night.
And on the other side, Herbie was as good as he ever be. What do you make, 200 and something?
He's had absolutely brilliant.
The breaks tackle. Like he's smaller than Manu, but he's just got that same sort of effect when he can just break through 3 blokes somehow.
I think a lot of it's to do with his acceleration. That first 5 or 10 metres where he just really takes off, and you can get you get your speed up before you hit the line. Makes a big difference.
You could argue. Well, had the try disallowed, which only went up that way, which you can argue either way. We don't know. Was involved in another couple of great touches. He's a fantastic pickup for the Dolphins, who need fantastic pickups. Yep. I mentioned Billy Walters earlier. I thought he's now getting through his work very well there, and he doesn't necessarily. If he picks nice times to run, but he's not there to run. He's not so much even there for his service is good. Not always perfect, but I think he just does a decent. He's sort of like Phoenix Crossland, but Crossland gets through more defensive work. But I think he's finding his niche, and he's doing a good job about it.
Yep.
In all, you can wrap all those similar story before you could wrap all those forwards. They all do a good job.
Yeah, absolutely, they did. I thought Ruben Cotter got through his work, so did Griffin Neame and Robson. They were decent in the middle of the field.
Had some nice touches, but what do you say?
Tuolangi and Felt were very good, as Drinkwater was, as you just mentioned. I thought Lukey was awesome. I thought he had a really big game in this one. And Luciano had a phenomenal game. Yeah. He was, again, just busting tackles and causing all sorts of problems out there. Got through a decent amount of work. Cobbo, man, capable, Paliasea. They put in fine efforts. All those guys, Farnworth, Piacora were very good. You can just mention the 17 of them. Like seriously, but Staggs, Haas, and Carrigan, they put in gigantic efforts.
You haven't even mentioned Haas, but like
they were amazing. Like,
he might be the best front row I've ever seen. Now I think I used to say it was Webke and
Lazarus,
and I think he goes. I can't say goes harder, but goes longer at intensity than anyone I've ever seen in that position. And then, like, you know, if I'm thinking of your Steve Prices and Sivan Aceivas and co, he's better than them. Just what he does is incredible. And for that reason, I was giving him 3 points.
I gave it to Carrigan, and I had Hassford too.
Actually, yeah, let's flip it because Paddy's so great.
And then I had Staggs or Luciano for the one.
And it's amazing to think, like, we've always had reps on him, and ever since Magic Round last year, he's had injuries, he's had suspension a lot, and this is a career year for him. Whereas now it is being widely discussed that he'll.
Well, he was scoring tries, setting up tries, just breaking the line for fun at different points. Like he was, I thought he was brilliant. Yep. Haas obviously did a mountain of work, and he does it every week in and week out. And you could flip a coin for either or either, but I just thought there's a little bit more impact out of Carrigan.
I'm fine with that. In terms of direct points?
Yeah, Carrigan, Haas, and Staggs or Luciano.
No, I guess Staggs. And I think I'd honorary for Herbie.
Yeah, absolutely. He's it's amazing where he's come from, man. Seriously. Like, he was 50-50 about being in the side 18 months ago. Yeah. And he's now, he's first or second pick, like, in their back line.
Oh, for sure.
Or centres, anyway. Like, he's not missing their first grade team.
No, not at all. And I don't think that's ever been in doubt. Walsh, he hasn't been like Mr. Supercoach, and I think a lot of people look at footy through.
He will be. There'll be another game before the end of the year where he tons up and absolutely kills it. He creates too many opportunities for him.
That's my point. Like he's creating, it's just not all clicking. But one day it's going to. It might happen in a grand final. Yeah, it might happen in a grand final. They will beat Penrith.
It might happen with the highest Supercoach point anyone's ever seen.
I could see them getting to. You know how when you get to those prelim week one finals, and the best teams just go, you know what, it's fucking time to go, and it's 50. I can see this Brisbane team doing
there'll be a game, there'll probably be 2 or 3 in his career where he'll set up 4 tries, score 2 or 3 himself. And just.
He was quite emotional too. Was there something? Was there more?
Yeah, apparently he dedicated his, he lost his uncle, and he'd lost his uncle during the week, and had said that he would score a try for him on the weekend. And
cool.
Sure enough, the ball bounced his way. It was a bit of luck to it, but ran away and scored, and got very emotional about that. But I'd heard somewhere in the background that he'd lost a family member
makes sense.
during the week.
I couldn't hear the commentary. We got 2.
I don't think it was mentioned on the commentary. I'm pretty sure it was something that I'd read somewhere else.
Okay.
But
30-28, the Knights, perhaps on the back of a lucky penalty. Apparently, Annesley came out today and said the penalty was wrong. The SASE Strum penalty. But as I've noticed, they don't turn around and award points to teams.
No, they don't.
As Tim Sheens can attest to. But they tried hard here. Dolphins, what the stats say? This was
both teams tried really hard. There's a lot of good football played as well. We had 5 tries apiece, 3 out of 5 conversions for the Dolphins, 5 out of 5 for the Knights. 1 out of 1 penalty attempts for the Dolphins and a missed field goal attempt. 80% completion, played 75%. 111 plus running metres for the Dolphins, 6 line breaks to 9, 31 tackle busts to 52 for Newcastle, 8 offloads to 9, 1 forced dropout from the Dolphins side, 291 tackles played, 347 from Newcastle. 7 probably leads to the way that the Dolphins got back in the back end of the game. 7 errors to 11, 7 penalties conceded to 5. 1 ruck infringement against the Dolphins, a sin bin against the Knights. Asako with 124 Supercoach points, Ponga with 121, and Connolly Lemuelu with 92. What a strange fucking game of football. Very entertaining. But the more switches of momentum than my ex-missus had personalities. There was just, it swapped around so many different times. Like, there'd be 10 minutes, one team's absolutely killing it, completely flipped on its head, turned upside down for 10 minutes, and then 10 minutes later, the exact same thing happened again, and it got completely flipped upside down. Ah, the memories. Yeah, it was ridiculously how one side would completely be on top, look like they were going to score 20 points in the next 15 to 20 minutes, and then a simple drop of the ball or a penalty given away, and the whole momentum completely shifted back to the other side. Some really nice tries in this game. There was some simple lapses in defence as well that I think the Dolphins would be kicking themselves, to be honest.
If you go and if you especially go back and if you listen to this and didn't watch the game, just go back and watch the
Phoenix Cross and try.
Even the highlight reel. There's probably three of their tries were quite like the Hastings.
The Hastings one was the worst.
It was just soft.
He did say just skipped and a bloke missed him.
Yeah,
he went to tackle him and he just sort of did a half goose step and then walked under the post.
All three of those middle tries were just soft defence.
Yep. And and that's what cost them the game at the end of the day. And they were all sort of scored, I think, in about a 20-minute period as well, which. Obviously, I don't know if that leads to fatigue, whether that's something to do with the bench rotation or what was going on. But I was a bit disappointed with the Dolphins forwards too, to be honest, in this game. I don't think they really aimed up the way that they have earlier in the year. We've said that time and gas tank and all the rest of that kind of stuff. You've been saying it for about 6 weeks now, and it's come.
This felt like
for the majority of the time.
A wise man once suggested the lawnmower theory that is when the gas tank is empty, there's that last kick where it gives something right at the, and this might have been the Dolphins. This might have been the Dolphins' last little spurt up.
But yeah, I think the coach should be pretty filthy with those. It was Kurt Mann not Felix Crossland try, and just before half time, and then Hastings sliding in underneath the posts. But at the same time, some of the tries were sublime, like the Niokora down the sideline to Asako, the kick across and the climbing up nice and high, the catch off the Sullivan kick for Asako to score again. The interchange of offloads between Fitzgibbon, Ponga, and then for Crossland to score over on the left-hand edge, that was, breaking tackles and then offloading back. And it was a really nice piece of play as well for the Newcastle try. But
as we get into, and Newcastle now won 5 straight, but...
and the gay guy tap on to...
Yes.
To Young to go down the sideline, back inside to Ponga. Yeah.
He was great again. I reckon this next month we're going to see... Greg Marsey doesn't leave the ground. He does it pretty well on the ground, but we're going to see him absolutely cross-field bombed from now to probably eternity. But
possibly.
I reckon the next few weeks it's coming because he was shown up here as... And Azarko is a form winner of the competition, but... It was shown up here, and it takes some skill from O'Sullivan.
Would have been on the other side of the field, wouldn't it?
No, it was across to Marzi. Zarko jumping over him. Yeah. And he doesn't get off the ground.
No, he doesn't.
So,
it's not a leap.
I would back Dom Young to be in the contest. Yeah. So I reckon that's coming. I'll be wary of that. I think Ponga was brilliant again. He is putting together, as I said, they get into 6 here. You've got to look at this as... If they don't lose another game, you've got to look at this as a Haynes-style run. Mm-hmm. But you mentioned Nikorima. Hammer's been a bit flat lately. I don't know.
Didn't really get involved a great deal in this game. Just sort of hung out the back, a lot of it. Remind me a bit of a South Sydney fullback that we'll get to shortly. But he did have a 10 or 15-minute period where he broke a few tackles and did a few things. But, as I said, I was a bit disappointed in the Dolphins forwards. The exception to that was probably Wallace and Connolly Lemuelu. They were fantastic. Did a big job, but the rest of them probably shall remain unnamed. O'Sullivan, Nikorima had terrific games. I thought they created a lot out of the half-back position and 5'8". Nikorima played in the centres, didn't he?
Yeah.
But they had some really, really nice touches. Asako had a spectacular game. Gagai and Young were very good. Hastings, just as you mentioned the last month or so, he just gets them in the right position so often. Creates that, blocks up that first line and gets them to exactly where they need to be for the balls to go out the back, and then they can shift and play from there. He had a massive game in this one, and you had Fitzgibbon, Frizzell, and Adam Elliott really owned the middle for Newcastle, and were probably a big part of the reason that they were, when they did get on top, that they were the big part of why they did, because they kicked down that front door for Newcastle to go off the back of that. Ponga was brilliant again, but he's generally, when the ball's getting out wide, he's the guy that puts him in the position.
It's his job, but he does his job as good at his best. He's now playing the sort of footy that he should be challenging Reece Walsh again. You've got to say,
absolutely.
And
ever since the Origin finished, he's been in sublime form. He's been fantastic.
And kudos to him for making the whatever way it allegedly happened, made the call to say
decision not to play.
Focus on this and get it right, but they're getting a lot right. You've got to give credit to where they've come from and to O'Brien. I can't believe O'Brien's still under pressure.
Yeah, there should be no pressure there now.
So he's doing something right. So how do you then treat this Newcastle team going forward?
Yeah, they're an attacking threat. They'll challenge most teams' defences, and if they can get up above the 20-point mark, then they're going to challenge most oppositions they're against. So,
and they've got the Bulldogs, the Knights, the Sharks, and Dragons. That's a good run home. If they're serious contenders, they should be capable of beating a Rabbitohs team on what we saw on the weekend.
The big thing is that they are a little bit probably left-hand dominant, where they go with Ponga out to that edge with Fitzgibbon. So if you can number up on Fitzgibbon and Ponga, it sort of limits their opportunities there. But you've also got Frizzell, Gagai and Young down the other side that have been providing points as well. But if you can get a team that really locks down one side of the field, you could probably go a fair way to beating the Newcastle side if you can lock up one side of the defence.
We've said it about Souths for years, and they seem to still find a way. So
true.
But
not recently.
Not recently at all. So good on them. Like, they started the season hot. I'm happy for him because I've been the harshest critic for a couple of years, and now I really enjoy watching him play. I'm happy for Jackson Hastings, apart from the fact it makes me miserable every week. I'm happy for Kalen Ponga because he's fun to watch. So, and he's kicking it brilliantly again as well.
Ponga, Asako, flip of the coin. Who got the 3 points there? Went with Ponga because they won, obviously. Asako with the 2. And then where did I go for the last? I had Adam Elliott as the 1 point. I thought he was brilliant. It was best game.
Did we talk about Phoenix Crossland? Just what he's done in the last
2 years for
in the last month for Crossland. He's just
he's absolutely found a completely different level. The bloke didn't look like he could tackle at the start of the year. Now he doesn't look like missing a tackle. Yeah. It's just ridiculous. I don't know how you can go from, because he used to get targeted. They'd run at him constantly when he was playing. Yeah. But he was only coming on playing bit parts, having to defend in the halves or in the centres and stuff like that. But he did not look like he could tackle whatsoever. Then they throw him into the 9 where we all questioned how he was going to go being defended in the front line. And now he's one of the better defensive hookers in the game. He's also he's got that acceleration out of dummy half that if you do give him half a sniff with uneven markers or a gap on an edge, that he pushes into those holes. And if you've got someone following him, works well.
They're doing well. And they've got a pretty good hooker up their sleeve again next year.
Maybe for a couple of games.
Yeah.
Poor bastard.
Poor bugger. I think they make the 8.
Yeah, I'm thinking more that way as well, to be honest.
I'm starting to think them and
South and Parramatta have looked a bit shaky recently. So.
Well, let's talk about shaky South here. 26-16, and I was kicking myself because I should have stuck to my guns with the baked rabbit narrative I've been pushing for a couple of weeks.
3 or 4 weeks, yeah.
Unfortunately, I didn't necessarily have the faith in the Sharks, but they looked baked here, Barn.
Yeah, well, it was do or die for the Sharks, and they came out and put up a very physical showing for 60 minutes, which they haven't done for big parts of the year. To be honest, they've generally, when they've beaten teams, they haven't beaten them physically. It's just been getting the balls to the outside edges and relying on skill and pace and a bit of footwork out wide. But they really took it to Souths early in this one in the middle. 3 out of 3 tries for Souths, 4 for the Sharks. 2 out of 3 conversions played, 4 out of 4 for Cronulla. 1 out of 1 penalty attempts for Cronulla. 66% completion for Souths, 80% for Cronulla. 5 line breaks from both teams. 44 tackle busts from both sides. 9 offloads to 17. 2 forced dropouts to 1. 350 tackles played, 301. 15 errors from South, 9 for Cronulla. 11 penalties conceded to 4. 2 ruck infringements to 3. 1 inside the 10 against Souths. A sin bin against the South side. Nico Hines with 100 Supercoach points. Katoa with 76. One other Cronulla player before you got to Ramey and then Tuss, who were both tied on 74.
This first half, actually, Souths, for the first 20 Souths, I thought were in the game. their execution was poor. And that's been the case since Origin. Since Walker's come back from that game in Origin, their finishing touches
It's
are
playing
terrible.
sideways again.
And they're just getting owned. They're not looking sharp at all. They're dropping balls. There's people in wrong positions.
Looked at the way he played in Origin 3, and he was direct. Even if he wasn't running direct, he was running at an angle where it would draw defenders and you know position his outside men. He's going straight across the field again.
It took him to the 70th minute, and he did it where he dug into the line and all of a sudden opened the crevice and Tass scored. But it was what concerned me was their edge defence. That was on both sides ragged, I thought, and Sharks were just murdering through there.
I think that had a bit to do with the middle being pushed in because the Sharks were really stormed. Like the way they were running the ball through the middle of the field, I haven't seen that out of them very often this year. It was one after another. It was Ueli followed by Hazelton when he got out there. Limited minutes, but he was fantastic again out there. Toby Rudolph, Brayley jumping off the back of that. McGuinness jumping off the back of that.
Up and had some runs.
It's the best defence I've seen out of Graham for a long time. I know it fell apart towards the back end of the game and he missed a couple late in the game, but both sides, the Sharks really, their defence did fall away in the last 15, 20 minutes of the game, but early in the game, they were hitting and sticking and their defence was actually quite good. I was surprised seeing 44 missed tackles, to be honest, because it didn't look early they weren't missing tackles.
34 would have happened in the last 20 minutes.
Last 20 minutes.
Which, that last 20 minutes was some of the
so.
wackiest football I've seen where it was, I think the completion rate in both teams was 0. Like, none of them wanted for the 20 minutes there, someone would have a hit up, someone would pass, someone would offload, someone would beat 3 blokes and drop it, or get tackled at next, or make a bust, get tackled, drop the ball in the play the ball, and off back we went again. It was all a bit mad, and it let South back in the game, and they had a bit of composure for some of that time. Troll threw a nice pass. Cody, as I said, dug into the line. They could have had another one with Graham getting held up, which was a great effort to hold him up.
The Sharks did spend 20 minutes. They went into defence mode, and they can't. I know how much he backs himself as being a defensive coach, and last year they were good enough to do it. This year they have been nowhere near good enough to do it, and it just showed again in this 20-minute period where they clocked off and basically went, "We'll just defend our way to a win." With 10 minutes to go, they were worried. Like they picked it up in that last 10 minutes and defended a little bit better, but it caused more problems than it did good.
I think I saw enough here where obviously they stamped Trindle and Nico should be the combination going forward.
Absolutely.
I know.
It gives them another kicking option too, because Trindle took half the kicking, which did help.
And I thought he kicked quite well. And I know he had the lucky second try, which was very, very impressive, and Herrera did a great job and everything to flick back and off the ricochet and get him under the post. But it was that moment was very much one of those you create your own luck sort of moments, because I thought up to that he was very, very good.
Through the entire time.
I thought he was nearly
better than Nico for the first half hour.
He was nearly the best player in the field for a long time there, I thought, digging in the line, apart from the forwards, as you'll get to. McGuinness was fantastic again, his leg speed, and as you said, I think maybe it wouldn't be the worst idea next year, a fresh start, make him club captain and take all the pressure off Nico and let Nico be Nico. In Connor Tracy, they didn't miss a great deal with Kennedy not there. They missed some of that.
It didn't have that big sweep play come in too often, but it was a little bit more direct. He came in and played that supporting role through the middle a little bit more, which I think led to them actually trying to play that push through the middle more so than the shift to the edge, which probably made them play that little bit tougher, which was needed. I thought the physicality early was really something that they'd planned to do, and they'd gone out to try and rattle Souths, and I thought they did rattle Souths.
And it's always been South. It's been our concern for 3 years about Souths is it can be a slightly smaller. Sometimes they feel big, but they can be bashed. Their forward pack.
But most of them got rattled, except for Murray, who kept coming. He never shirks it. Shirks it. Never goes backwards. But even blokes like Arrow, who generally just keep coming, and they get angrier when you put the aggression on them. He seemed to go backwards as well in this one, which was interesting. You don't normally see. Sharks defence early, they were putting 2 and 3 blokes into most tackles, which was really good to see. Something that they haven't really done. It's just sort of been one guy trying to make a tackle and one flopping in underneath, whereas they were all 2 and 3 shoulders were making contact at one time. They really targeted the centres and the outside backs for South, which came to fruition a few times. Poor Munro, while he had some really nice moments in attack, got burned a couple of times by Katoa out there and made to look a little bit silly once or twice. But that's, you learn. He's only a young kid. He looks like he's got a bright future.
Well,
and
it looked like he
he'll
was
learn
about to
some
light it
things.
up there. And then I think, who was it Warren Smith calling? He said the invisible man got him, but which was quite fun. I was having time in life watching the second half. But
Latrell dead set needed a map for the first hour. He didn't know where he was. He fucking had no idea what he was doing. Like, Nico pushed him around the field at the start of the game. He was kicking away from him and making him chase 20 metres to pick up the ball every time that the Sharks finished a set, which, is probably a very good...
What's what I do? And we've seen
that's
what worked. Remember 2 years ago, Cleary did it. Just kick to where he's not and make him have to
run
the
15, 20 minutes to get the ball.
To come back and then meet him with a set line.
And he was gassed after 20, 30 minutes. And, obviously he's only back a couple of games at the moment, but I thought that was a clever way that they played that. But he really had no impact except for that sort of 10-minute spurt where South really started to put it on and he decided to get involved a little bit. But somehow managed to get fucking 60-something Supercoach points.
That's what he does. and a great cover tackle to drag out. Hiroti
on the other edge. Yeah, that was actually that should have been against most teams. That's probably a try because he was in a really good position. But it was fantastic contact to drag him over just before he put the ball down. But I thought Cronulla probably deserved to win by a few more if they didn't clock off in the last 20 minutes. I thought they were pretty comprehensively the better side, and the effort was something that, going forward, they're going to need, especially going into a finals campaign where they might win one or they might get blown out.
Minutes instead of 55 as well, because other teams, you give a Brisbane that the opportunities they gave, and they probably win this game.
They're missing a bloke in the forwards that can play 60 minutes. They don't have anyone in their front row that can play 60 minutes.
Yeah. Or
even 50 minutes. Like, they all play 25, 30 minutes, and that's it. And while you're sharing it between 6 blokes, fair enough. But it's, they need someone that can stretch it out to 40,
realistically,
50 minutes.
They need to get Finucane back into the front row and then have McGuinness play the whole game.
Yeah, but even he's not playing the impact that he was.
And probably doesn't want to.
ULA probably can do it, but he's, again, only two or three games back.
He led the physicality for a lot.
He's only 2 or 3 games back. Rudolph can do it as well, but again, he's been a long time injured, and I think he's only 3 or 4 games back in. So give it another month, they might be able to stretch it out to 40 or 50 minutes and provide a little bit more steel through the middle. But they sort of they made South probably look a little bit flooded towards the back end of the game.
Yeah. That's the only concern, but good performance. You would have been happy. So
just the enthusiasm and the effort was 2 weeks in a row, because they put that same effort in against Penrith. They just got steamrolled by the best team in the comp. So,
who are you giving 3 to? Don't say Nico.
No, I gave it to Katoa.
Okay,
I thought Katoa was brilliant. A couple of the tries that he scored were very good efforts on his own to be able to do what he did. He's always seemed to always be in the right position. I did give Nico 2, just because.
I had Trindle 2, but. And McGuinness 1, but I'm also spiteful.
So. Yeah. No, give Trindle 2.
If you want to give Nico 1, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I had Murray or McInnes.
And Murray is either...
Murray was brilliant. I think Murray needs to get 1.
Give him 1.
Just leave Nico
because in a lone effort, he was absolutely... In a weekend where we've creamed ourselves over...
2 tries and...
over Paddy, we should point out that Cam Murray's pretty good at this football caper.
Yep, absolutely.
He was great too, so... That was the start. The second half was the start of rugby league chaos. Sunday, we got our second or third week in a row of Sunday chaos as Parramatta and the Dragons headed to the final score up 26-20. And Annesley confirmed today that should have been a try, the Gutho strip.
Right.
Was a crucial
bounce back and
crucial moment, I guess.
I thought that at the time as well.
It would have been, I think, 26-10 at the time, so that's a big way home. So, anyway, lesser teams cop it as usual.
Generally.
Stats.
5 tries to 4, 3 out of 5 conversions played, 2 out of 4. 83% completion for Parramatta, 72% for the Dragons. 5 line breaks to 7, 39 tackle busts to 34, 11 offloads to 22, 358 tackles played, 379, 7 errors to 12, 2 penalties conceded to 6, 3 ruck infringements to 1, 0 inside the 10s to 1. Bryce Cartwright with 127 Supercoach points. Oh, Ravalawa was in front of that with 142, and Paulo with 94.
Who Danon managed to find this week to
in the draft
to win the draft comp. But anyway,
another Sunday, another 2 games of complete confusion and chaos. Just both teams just having continued opportunities, making poor simple errors, or creating some really good bits of football. Like it's just one way or the other. It either completely fell to shit, or there was something really nice that came off the back of it. Parramatta seemed to have all the running early. They're dominating most parts of the field. Paulo was in wrecking ball mode and just charging through the middle of the field. They're getting the ball wide, causing some problems, and they scored on both edges with, I think it was Russell, and then Cartwright took one out of dummy half.
Arthur Miller-Stevens.
Arthur Miller-Stevens.
Scored on debut. That was about all he did on debut. He had a very good first 10 minutes. And then
he stopped Rava once or twice
and it became a doormat for the next 7.
Like he put on 2 good shots, I'm pretty sure, on Rava to stop him, and then Dylan Brown put in a nice cover tackle to stop him from scoring, and he probably should have scored 7 or 8 tries, but he managed to score 4. It was funny because Parramatta seemed to be able to create opportunities in different parts of the field. Like Dylan Brown looked quite good early in this game, and they scored on both edges. But for Dragons, it was all down there. It was just give it to Lomax and then give it to Ravalawa one-on-one with the bloke that's in front of him, and he was an absolute steam train at different times, running
it's
over
the
the top of people.
we thought was coming 2 years ago, and I know he's had injury and a lot of issues along the way, but this was in the last month has been. Well, he's been hope of the side.
Even on one leg a couple of weeks ago, I think he give you blokes a bit of a rough up.
Especially the worst thing was when he was coming too.
But that was their problem. They couldn't find any other real opportunities anywhere else on the field apart from getting to that right edge, which
says something about Parramatta as well.
One of their better teams, but one of their better points of opportunity with Lomax and Rava out there. But there wasn't really much else happening anywhere else on the field. That right edge for Parramatta is a fucking problem.
Both edges I just went target. Like I don't know. Yeah. They need to go out and find. I know they were trying to get Shoop. They got shit canned. They're chasing someone else, but they need to find a.
Even when Sivo's there, it's still a defensive problem.
Sivo's not Ravalawa. Let's be honest.
But he's a bit better in defence than some of these blokes like Wanga Blake and fucking
ish.
The young fella that was out there.
But then he's got their other issues. Then he's got his other issues where he doesn't really return.
Doesn't want to chase the ball. Doesn't want to turn back. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
He just wants to grab the ball and bash over top of someone and score a try. There was I mentioned Dylan Brown's nice cover tackle to score to stop Ravalawa, but hat trick before half time, and then 10 minutes in the second half, he's got 4 tries, and I just thought they were going to keep.
Well, it looked like you said, he could. I just thought he's going to score 7 here, and I'm just going to regret more life decisions.
Not having him in your Supercoach team. But I mentioned they couldn't find any other options. They got caught like everyone said that they were pretty hard done by, and you mentioned the try that probably should have been a try, and there was they got pretty well handled in the penalty count as well. But there was a couple of times where they basically stood on their defensive line, didn't get up in the face of Parramatta, and it cost them. Yeah. Like there was more than one try that realistically should have been stopped with enthusiasm.
Well, the ball
and
was
energy.
just a flat ball that was really just he's through now.
He was in a good spot,
It was a nice enough ball,
nice enough ball, nice enough line, but that probably should have been stopped. And there was a couple of other tries that really the one out of dummy half from Cartwright to score their second try really should have been stopped with a bit of enthusiasm and energy. But they had it this game, and it makes you ask where the fuck it's been all year. Like, why are they waiting until the point where they're playing off for the wooden spoon, or not quite, but close enough, to be able to put this kind of energy and enthusiasm into 50, 60 minutes of football? Like, they haven't done it for the majority of the year, and they turn up and do it here against Parramatta.
Yeah,
just so they can hopefully pull an upset and cause shit at the back end of the year, because when they do put in the effort, they're not the worst team in the comp.
No. Ben Hunt had some nice touches, but again, it was mainly throwing the ball to Ravaloa and Lomax.
Yeah, absolutely.
But their forwards aimed up enough against a Spruik forward pack. They, held their own, more than held their own. Had them camped down there a lot of times and had them scrambling a lot of times. But
they did, absolutely.
What you say is right. Like, where has it been?
I think a bit of it's come through the young bloke Dan Russell. He's been awesome since he's been in that back row for this side. I obviously don't know much about him, but he's been brilliant since he's come into first grade. Laurie was fantastic again, and ever since they've sort of had him in and around the captaincy, he's been really good week in and week out for this team. Bird's inclusion coming back with the 20 on his back, he was very good again. And one that I don't know, I know there's been a little bit of injury, but I'm pretty sure he's been dropped once or twice too.
Yeah, I think he has, yeah.
Which I don't think he's deserved at all, to be honest. Like, he's been one of their better players most of the time when he's been out there.
I don't know how much sulking he's doing and stuff, because he wanted out. I think he's asked for a couple of releases and stuff, so...
Sloan, Lomax,
that's all. I don't know. That's
Little were all okay, but it was Hunt and Ravaloa who were the stars for the Dragons.
Little's been good too. Little,
mentioned he went okay. He has been very good for him at different times this year. It wasn't his best game in this one, but he put in a decent effort. I thought Lussick was good for Parramatta in dummy half. I didn't really agree with him dropping hands, but to be honest, he probably played as good as hands, if not better than anything hands has produced this year. He was good. The halves were decent. Gutherson, Hopgood, Madison all put in a really good shift in there, but it was Cartwright and Paulo. They were ridiculously good.
Cartwright was he's deserved an extension. This is the year where he's shown what I guess
I think we've mentioned him 6 out of the last 7 weeks or something.
Whatever, he's obviously in the right headspace. Everything's going well. He's putting his football together. He's putting his effort together, and it's a bit like it's not a fair parallel, but what we've seen of Fafita this year, in that he's putting a complete game together.
Yeah, well, that's why he got pushed out of Penrith to begin with. Yeah. He was just trying to throw the miracle pass. He was faffing around, didn't want to get the physical shit
he's done. Is he spent the first half of this year getting that shit right, and he's earned the right to throw the flick passes now, which are leading stuff.
Yeah, but he's putting in the physical effort first. Like, he's really dominating people before he's even trying to throw that flick pass at any different time. But I thought he was. Yeah, you have to give it to Ravaloa for 4 tries, I think, man of the match. But Cartwright was a very close second for 2 points.
I had either or. I was going to say either or.
And then I had Paulo. I thought Paulo was brilliant. Wrecking ball mode through the middle of the field. It's fantastic.
Match equaling try. But I don't think they win if he's not in the field. Simple as that. So I think that you're right in all 3. Parra won't make the 8. We don't need to spend too much time speculating on that. Too much chaos there. I actually think, in as much as we've had time for Penasini, I would suggest they probably need to go and find themselves a whole back line almost. The way they're doing now. I mean, they get Sivo back, and maybe in a more settled side. Now that Madison's back, now that they know what Carr's doing, maybe Penasini will be better, but the rest of them, Simonson is okay. Maybe better. Maybe it's just the wingers. Maybe it's just the wingers.
A couple of wingers.
Anyway. They've got Sivo coming back. He'll score tries. And we ended with 28-22 in the NRLW. It was, in fact...
22-18.
22-18 in the NRL proper. Right. As Canberra held on against the Tigers.
Fucking again. I don't know how they keep fucking doing it, man. Seriously. Their stats have got to be below everything. Anyone.
Courtesy of Rugby League... eye test, I believe. Yeah. They have the second most play the balls in the opposition 20 in the whole comp.
Right.
It's Penrith and the Tigers.
Yeah, and they've got incredible. A differential of minus 80 or something.
They're coming last. Oh, it's going red. We'll keep going.
Ridiculous. 4 tries to the Raiders, 3 to the Tigers. 3 out of 4 conversions played, 3 out of 3 for the Tigers. 65% completion played, 77% for the Tigers. 8 line breaks to 1, 48 tackle busts to 29. 7 offloads to 8, 1 forced dropout to 5, 313 tackles played, 297, 14 errors for the Raiders, 9 for the Tigers. 1 ruck infringement against the Tigers, 1 inside the 10 against the Tigers, 7 penalties conceded to 9. Whiten with 87 Supercoach points, Chris with 85, Luke Brooks with 72.
It was very good.
It was pretty committed effort from both teams for the majority of the game. especially in the first half. I thought the first half was very competitive and both teams went back and forth. Jerome Paul went so close to that first try. And he managed to fall a metre short and then double movement to, should have scored the first try but got dragged down a metre out. And then the ball goes and bounces like a super bouncy ball over the top of 4 players.
I know.
Put the ball down.
I know I say lots of fucking shit about the Tigers.
How the fuck does a ball bounce like that?
You would not see a ball bounce like that in 5 years, and that happens. And then you look at the next part of the game where Brooks kicks to Staines early. The ball keeps dribbling, bounces back, hits him in the gut. 20-metre restart. If that just sits up mildly, they score. Last play of the game, no Faluma. If it just sits up, if it doesn't bounce the same way, the special pump stand in Canberra, if it just bounces normally, Nofa scores and they win the game. You go back to the Dragons game where any other time that ball sits up and to win the game into Dragons and it rolls into touch. But anyway, the shit that happens, man, like it's try following them.
Yeah, no thanks. Rapida managed to get the first points. Bit of a softies try, I thought, for Young, where they sort of hung on to him and he managed to reach out full stretch and score, which probably could have and should have been stopped, which might have been the difference at the back end of the game. Raiders seem to stretch your right-hand defence and the Tigers there.
Right-hand
Junior, Tupu and
what the Canberra did wrong, Canberra decided for whatever reason they were going to push every pass. And they had the Laurie, like Whiten was owning Laurie in that first half.
But there was a 15-20 minute period where they just broke down
but every time they did, Whiten would throw it into touch.
Yeah, they get down into good field position and they'd fuck it up.
Yeah, I think the completion rate for Canberra was 37% or something in the first half.
Yeah, right.
But then it came out after half time and just decided, hey, well, let's actually play football. But I don't know whether that's just who Canberra are, but the execution was poor for them. They could have probably led 20-0 half time.
As I said, they were pushing down that edge, their left, your right, constantly. There was a good 15-20 minute period where they just seemed to go there and then they get down into good field position and then manage to turn the ball over or use to defend well and keep them out for the set and then you get the ball back. But Tigers managed to break open the Raiders a few times too, in and around the ruck. Appy created a couple of nice opportunities. Luke Brooks on the left edge there created a couple of nice inside sort of balls with channels back through Bateman and Clemmer. Clemmer, I thought, had a quite good game in the middle of the field, and
Clemmer's a bloke.
And truly up
your
for
point what you said earlier. Clemmer's a bloke. I reckon the Sharks wish they had.
Yeah.
A bloke that could play 65 minutes.
I did say he'd be a good pickup for the Sharks.
And
but
190 metres and 40, you know what I mean? Like just that sort of, he's just reliable.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
I've been ultra impressed with him coming in.
50, 60 minutes.
He's there for another 3 years. If he's committed, I think he's
been
great.
going awesome.
Great.
Yeah, he's been going real good. As good as he's gone for, obviously not
and all the shits out of his,
but
all the shits out of his game too. There's no real. He's now just laughing with the refs. Going, I fucked up again.
Fogarty's kicking game I thought was crucial, especially in and around the short kicking and some of the stuff he did there. They shared it a little bit more than they usually do, but it was good. Brooks was just as good with his kicking game. I thought his kicking game was fantastic as well, especially his long kicking game to get you out of trouble a few times. But just can't seem to close out opportunities.
The biggest, and it was from the Laurie injury, the biggest mistake they made for the second week in a row, or second week in 3, was moving App away from the ruck. They moved Appy to second receiver, basically. And if I honestly think if they'd left him there,
keep opening it up.
They probably win the game.
Because there was 10 or 15 minutes where they opened him up.
They took him off against the Dragons, and they took him off another game since he's come back. And he's the best hooker in the game at the moment. For what he's doing in that team. And we've lost the camera, but we'll finish this game.
Until Harry gets up and going, yeah.
Until Harry gets going. But what he does, the opportunities he created at first and second receiver were great as well. But if he stays at 9, I think Tigers
Open
get
him
home.
Up a few more times.
Yeah. And when they looked most dangerous was trying to come back through that back door through Appy, and that was they haven't quite got that right with Buller yet. They haven't quite got that 1-2 yet. That'll come at some point. Buller's been quiet for a bit now. I think his teams are trying to, have worked out.
Yeah, a bit more pressure on him.
He's now got to then get to that next step.
I think that you need your blokes like Bateman and Clemmer coming in off the back of Appy to hold that ball up and then provide that second phase.
Well, funny you mention that because I really liked and I've heard rap soon, but I liked Matamua, what he did in the 15. I think he's about on the field for 15 minutes, but we haven't had a link. Tigers haven't had a link man. For a long time. They tried Bateman, it didn't work. He's better on the edge. So he's almost better at centre. To be honest, they probably should move him to centre, really, the way they're going, because he played as good as Kapara.
Joffa was probably their best one for a little while.
But I think I think there's something there for Matamua. I think if they can work with him this year, I think he's only 19, get him up and going, and he
we did stand in the tackle a couple of times and provide a second phase.
I'd be looking to try and make him 13 and have Pole off the bench.
Or
eventually end up into
push Bateman out the centres.
I'm not saying Bateman should be a centre by any means, but
he's as good as anything you got.
The others but that was, I think, the best ball movements we had. Brooks, I thought, was great. I thought he really was, and it's weird to say because we didn't win the game, but he created every opportunity. He just, but he wasn't afraid to chance his arms. I think he can. I nearly an early bowl prediction here. He's almost a super coach must buy next year at Manly. We'll say that was.
If you play in 6, probably, yeah. If they do,
well,
play,
he's averaging 70. He's averaging 70 at the Tigers.
Yeah, absolutely.
He gets there and just has to float in off DCE. He could be scary there. I've been disappointed in the Tigers' edges a lot.
Yeah. Well, when Nofaluma is your best back.
Yeah, and he's on one. Like he dead set. Puppy would out sprint him these days. So. And he was fine. And for
he was
the
best
ball,
of your back five.
For a great
Took
ball
a nice intercept.
Yeah, and great ball to Brooks that led to the Staines try. Staines got injured, so we didn't see him second half. Who was fine again. There's bits and pieces. You go, okay, there's bits and pieces, but we've said it for a long time. Yeah. For Canberra, what got them back into the game? They started offloading, standing and offloading, and it was the two blokes you really want to wrap. No shock here. Firstly, Tarpanay. he had spiders on him for a lot of this game.
Yep.
But what Horsburgh's doing now is when they do make that half break through middle, he's the one doing the big diving tackle and chopping down. He's doing so much clean-up work now that it. I was so impressed with him in this game.
Just stand and watch.
Yeah. And he's now doing hard work through that middle, and he's learnt something there. So I've got to wrap him. Tarpanay, Puppy starting to look old, but did. Canberra Cup Puppy. He's starting to look a little bit old at times, but he's getting through his work as he always has. And I think you've covered the rest. Chris and Rapin are just always in the game. They're just energy and stain. Like they're the sort of blokes that when you're playing against them, you're always half nervous when they're in the game because something's going to happen. Rapin are safe as houses under. A lot of those Brooks kicks were testing kicks, and he was safe.
Twirl's probably one we haven't mentioned. I thought he had a good game.
Yes. Given that he hasn't been starting at all.
We mentioned Clement, Bateman. Brooks was the best Tiger out there easily. Thought the halves were strong for the Raiders. Mentioned Rapina. Yeah, Horsburgh and Tarpanay were brilliant, and they were my 1 and 2. I had Tarpanay with the man of the match. I had Whiten as 2. I thought a couple of the opportunities that he created and, he led to points, which wouldn't have happened if he wasn't out there. Then I had Brooks or Horsburgh for the 1.
That's tricky because I was giving Horsburgh more points, but I think Brooks needs to get at least 1.
Well, we can scrap Whiten. Let's just get rid of Whiten. So Horsburgh 2, Brooks 1.
Yep, I'm okay with that. Oh. As I try and get this camera going.
We're pretty much done. We've only got slaps and salutes to go.
That looks much better. There we go. Second camera's in play. Hello back, everyone there.
Hello, peoples.
Alrighty. What do we take? Well, actually, last word on Canberra. They're sort of nestled near the top 4. Do they make the top 4? Do they make the 8?
I don't care where they finish.
They're not going to go anywhere.
They play some of these teams.
The Storm this week.
Even the team that scrapes
Broncos,
into 8.
Sharks.
Even the team that scrapes into 8, I think, beats them in the finals.
Yeah, that was not a top 8.
They cannot hang on the way that they've been hanging on. We tipped the Tigers to beat them, and by all rights, they probably should have.
That was the classic. The operation was a success, but the patient died. Everything we said would transpire did, but the other team scored more points.
You get teams like Broncos, Warriors, even the Sharks, Parramatta.
Well, they've got Storm next month. They've got Storm, Broncos, Raiders, Sharks. They're a chance of losing.
Themselves.
Bulldogs Sharks, who always beat them. They're a chance of losing all those games.
Most of those games. Yeah.
And if they do, they're out. So
I don't think they missed the 8 now, but if they'd lost this one, I'd probably be backing them to miss the 8. But I think they would have at least finished in the 8 now. I don't give them much hope of firing much of a shot in the first week of the semis, and wouldn't be surprised if they're the first team knocked out of the semi-finals.
Well, if they lost this, they're below the Sharks. All of a sudden, they're sixth and looking nervous. Anyway, we've got to talk about a pot plant who caught your gardening eye. The player that would be better served, or the team would have been better served by having a pot plant.
I think I've given it to him 2 or 3 times this year, but Jason Saab again for mine. He was basically just completely fixed to one spot on the ground for a majority of it. Made 7 runs for 60-something metres. Made 7 tackles, missed 2, but he made 4 errors again. And his handling, when he's off, his handling is atrocious. And and it's generally when they're kicking to him as well. Like, you think the physique of the bloke and the way that he can jump would be able to shut down a lot of those opportunities, but he seems to cough them up more often than not, and it just directly goes straight back to the opposition and causes problems. If it doesn't lead directly to a try, it leads to a whole another set of 6, and there's generally points not long after. So
I ummed and ahed about this because I feel a bit bad giving to a bloke on debut.
Ashley Klein.
Arthur Miller-Stephen, unfortunately, just was doormatted by Ravalawa, and not necessarily his fault either, because that is the power structure, but he's probably having nightmares and probably having a bit of a break from first grade, I'd suggest, for the next few weeks.
Would imagine so.
So I'll give it to him. A slap, yes, you foresaw it. First of all, I'm going to slap James Tedesco because I'm sick of his whinging. Second of all, Ashley Klein. I just need to slap the officials. We've put off doing it so long, but it's just now getting a bit beyond a joke, and it's going to cost teams final spots. It's going to cost teams.
Yeah, that's the worst part about it. It's going to be a massive fuck up in the semi-final.
And there's certain individuals in the bunker that are incapable of watching games as well.
Yes,
so
I think I know your favourite one.
But if I say something, then I'll be.
Nathan Brown for mine. He's been fantastic coming back for the Roosters recently, and this is the way that, obviously he was out there, he was all pumped up, and he takes someone's head off a couple of minutes after coming onto the game. It could have cost the Roosters the game if Manly were on, and it was definitely, we know he's been quite good since he's got to the Roosters, but this performance was very poor in those couple of minutes that he was out there.
Yeah,
lost his head.
Finish on a good one, as they say, Barn. Who are we saluting?
I've got 2. I couldn't really split the 2, to be honest, and
that's right, I've got a cop-out one as well, so that's fine.
No, it's Sean Johnson. I've given it to him a few times now. He's the way that he's just picking his moments perfectly and setting up points at will when the Warriors need them the most as well. Like, they were on the rack there when they were behind and needed points, and he comes up with 2 tries in the space of 5 or 10 minutes just through his own footwork and a bit of acceleration to set up the Warriors for their win. And Jaden Campbell, I thought, again, footwork, pace, and he just seems to have that footy brain. He just knows, he gets himself in the right positions. He's always competing for the ball, and he had a brilliant performance this week. Yeah.
I've got 2 as well, and as I said, one's half a cop-out, so I'll go for the less cop-outy one first. Kalen Ponga, from what he's come back from the head knocks, from the concerns about us, even absolutely. Whether he finishes the season.
Head knock's a big one, yeah.
He is just about the form fullback of the competition, so, and is going to drag Newcastle perhaps into a final spot.
Yep.
And I'm going to salute the Penrith Panthers because I think that's the best 60 minutes of rugby league I've seen in a long time. Probably since the Penrith Panthers grand final last year, actually, if I think about it. But just every aspect of what they do and what they do well, and where they move to and how they set up games and how they defend, it's just absolute magnificence, and rightfully will be in discussion for the best NRL team in the last 20 years. And you'd make strong arguments they are. So kudos to them, for the sake of other teams. I hope someone else wins a comp, but I'm thinking they're $1.60 at the moment. So that's going to be how I end the game. Well done, Penrith. I have enjoyed, especially now they're back to full strength, enjoyed watching the last few weeks.
Don't take the $1.60. Just take the $1.50 every week from now until the end of the
just
comp.
keep going. Take it in the grand final.
all in,
Just
all
keep
in, all in.
Putting your money on it.
Yeah.
Better than work for black caviar. So, anyway, that's been it, Bun. We will be back.
Been a pleasure.
Maybe even tomorrow on Zoom. We'll see how we get out tomorrow, Wednesday for the Zoom.
Tomorrow, Wednesday, yeah.
To preview what's coming up this week in an interesting round, which I've not looked at.
To be honest.
Here we go. What do we got?
Too busy catching up on all the rest of it.
Yeah, interesting round coming up. Cowboys, Sharks, Warriors, Seagulls, Eels and Roosters, Titans, Penrith, Newcastle Bunnies, Raiders, Bulldogs, all with finals implications. So we'll preview all that.
Yeah, it's quite a bit.
But check out rugbyleaguemerch.com. Buy some hats and beanies and good stuff there. And we'll talk to everyone soon. Leave us some feedback on YouTube especially and social media. We're on all the socials. Be good, guys, and we'll chat soon.
Matildas with a 2-0 lead with 20 minutes to go.
How about that?
Come on, Aussie, come on.